right, so another term for us to learn is vertical angles. So first off, in order to have vertical angles, you need lines that intersect, aka lines that crisscross. All right. When you have lines that intersect, the angles that are directly across from each other are what we call vertical angles. So for example, angle 1 is directly across from angle 3, and angle 2 is directly across from angle 4. So we would say that angles 1 and 3 are one pair of vertical angles, and angles 4 and 2 are another pair of vertical angles. A very important property that vertical angles share is that they're always congruent to each other. So therefore, angles 1 and 3 are congruent, and angles 4 and 2 are congruent. So something that your textbook, your worksheets, whatever, they're going to want you to pick up on is when you see crisscrossing lines, you want to get in the habit of putting in your own arc markings. So I used one arc for angles 1 and 3, and I used 2 arcs for angles 4 and 2. So you want to get in the habit of putting that in yourself because they won't do it for you. And this is a typical problem that you would see regarding vertical angles. So the key is to notice we have crisscrossing lines. These angles are directly across from each other, so therefore they are vertical, hence they are equal. That means we're going to set them equal to each other, and then we're going to solve for x. So take you back to your Algebra 1 days again. I like to do 2 steps in one, so we're going to subtract x from one side, and then we're going to add 5 to the other, and then divide both sides by 3, and we'll find out that x equals 7. The next thing we have to talk about is what's called the angle addition postulate. However, we need to know what adjacent angles are before we talk about that postulate, so I'm going to skip this for right now, and we're going to talk about adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are angles that share a ray. So in other words, they're angles that share 2 letters, and one of those letters has to be the vertex. So for example, when you look at this picture, we have angle TRQ and angle TRS. Because those 2 angles share ray RT and R is a vertex, these are adjacent angles. And that's what we would write. We would write that angles TRQ and angle TRS are adjacent. So the angle addition postulate says that when you have adjacent angles, you're allowed to add them together, and that will equal the total measure of the angles combined. So it's a lot easier to show you with pictures than it is to try to describe it in words. And this is how our textbook usually writes it, so I'd like to show you what it's saying. So they're telling you that if you take the measure of angle QRT, so that's this angle right here, you can see that that is 40 degrees. And we add the measure of angle TRS, which is 83 degrees. That will equal the measure of angle QRS. So we would just add 40 and 83, and we get this giant angle measure. That's what that angle addition postulate is saying. So it's kind of like, oh, you add the smaller pieces to equal the whole thing. We'll go ahead and throw in 2 more words for you. So we have the word supplementary, which means angles that add up to 180. And then we have complementary, which means angles that add up to 90. And a typical question would say, what's the supplement of 120? That means what number plus 120 gets you 180? So obviously, you would just subtract 120 from 180 and find out, oh, that's 60. And then they could say the complement. So in other words, the complement of 30 means what number plus 30 gets you 90? So again, you would just subtract 30 from 90 and get, coincidentally, 60 as well. So we're going to go down here. We have 2 angles that are adjacent and they're complementary. You can see that there's a box that runs through both those angles. So that means together they make 90 degrees. So we're going to go ahead and add the first angle, which is x degrees, the next angle, which is 62 degrees, and together that should make 90 degrees, which of course would mean x has to be 28. Make the problem just a little bit longer, but the same idea. So we have two adjacent angles. So we're going to take the first angle, which is 2x plus 46, the second angle, which is 3x minus 6, and if we add those two together, we'll get this full 90 degrees. Do a little bit of combining like terms. We'll subtract 40 and then divide by 5, and we'll find that the answer is 10. So this is where we'll stop this video. We have one more video that we'll need to go through, so when you're ready, you can go ahead and close out of this and then open the next one, and we'll pick up with some more angle addition postulate.